I'm Father Anthony, and this is To Prepare His Way. I decided to go live at this park down, if you can see that, on Lake Ontario in the city of Kingston. And I entitled this live discussion, so I do hope that some will, what's this, top fans? Hope that some will enter the live chat and about what topic you might want me to talk about, or if you have any questions. For those who don't know me, I am a Catholic priest. I've been a priest for 20 years now. I'm working on my 21st year as a priest. After 13 years of parish ministry, I asked my bishop and he gave me permission to live in more solitude and simply offer people spiritual direction, pastoral counseling, be kind of a hermit, although not a canonical hermit. I'm still a diocesan priest. And so I live kind of the Pustiniac way, although, you know, I don't want to give any impression that I'm really holy or something like that, but my limited understanding of a Pustiniac is, comes from Catherine Doherty. I believe her status is servant of God. I think her cause for sainthood is under investigation or open. So, but she brought this concept of kind of a Russian hermit to the West, and my limited understanding. So I don't mean to be stepping on anyone's toes in terms of how this actually works, but that a Pustiniac is a hermit, but not a recluse, someone who would involve himself in the community, especially in charitable works and this sort of thing. I did spend 8 months at Madonna House in Combermere at their main lay training center, lay apostolate training center, I think what it's called, because they have for many years now, started by Catherine Doherty, a pre-seminary spiritual formation year. So, so I was very grateful I'm very grateful and was very, very blessed to be able to be at Madonna House when I was 24, 25 years old. And let me just see if I can turn on this chat here. How are we going? Want to stop streaming? No. Top chat. Top fans? What does this say? Live chat. Here we go. There we go. Now, if you leave a chat, it should come up, and I'll be able to read it. So anyway, yeah. So I guess I know more than the average person about Pustinia and some of the things that Catherine Doherty brought from Russia. But I don't pretend to be an official Pustiniac or something like that. I do think what prompted me to ask my Archbishop to take this change of direction in terms of my priestly ministry is, and when I say my priestly ministry, I mean the priestly ministry of Jesus Christ, right? There is only one priest, that is Jesus Christ. We who are validly ordained in His Holy Catholic Church, we are ambassadors for Christ. We are we act in persona Christi, in the person of Christ, of course, in administrating the sacraments. But the reason I asked the Archbishop to do this is because of a real strong pull to more of a life of solitude. But I do find, and if you watch my videos and live streams over the years, and many of you subscribed first to this channel during the Truckers' Freedom Convoy, when it was the first time that I attempted to go live on this YouTube channel, and it worked. And but I do like being with people. I'm definitely not a recluse, but I do seem to need a lot of solitude so that my batteries can be recharged. So, um, so it really works out well. In the parish life, um, I felt it was too much. Even in a small country parish, if there's anything to introvert, extrovert, I guess I would be an introvert. I do love people, but I do get tired when I'm with people. I'm down here at a park in Kingston, down at Lake Ontario, and this couple came by. They were looking for a picnic table or something like this, and I was kind of taking two picnic tables, and so I went over to them and just asked them, you know, what do you want, and I'll move. And we had a great conversations with them while he was on his lunch break, and his wife, I guess, brought lunch down to meet at this lovely park. So whenever I go out and about, I'm always meeting people, and it's always an adventure. And I can talk about, you know, some of my recent outings, and talk about some of the people that I've encountered. And I realize that very few people have ever had a conversation with a Catholic priest. Even those of you who go to Sunday Mass regularly, maybe even daily Mass, except for, you know, saying hello to the parish priest after Mass, or maybe going to confession, or maybe some specific things related to parish life. Most people have never had a conversation with a priest. Now, sometimes, of course, people reach out to us for their pastoral needs, for some marital advice or spiritual direction or something like that, some guidance in their spiritual life, or some theological question or something like that. But to have just a normal conversation with a priest, I think it's very rare. And when I'm out and about, I do think that sometimes that, well, I do think this happens, is that a person's guardian angel, like we all have guardian angels. Each of us have a guardian angel. They say priests have more than one. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Lord, for my guardian angels. But everyone has, you know, at least one guardian angel, and that guardian angel's task is to get the person to heaven. So I can't help but think that in a crowded space or something, or even just walking around, that some of their guardian angels are saying, kind of, you know, whispering, so to speak, oh, go talk to that guy. Go talk to the guy. And when I'm out and about, you know, people are always smiling at me. Now, okay, you know, you kind of receive back what you give, right? So I, you know, every day, Lord, please use me as your instrument. Okay? And help me to see others as you see them, Lord. And I do make a conscientious effort to try to be positive. You might not believe that by watching some of my videos, but I try to be positive, and I try to be affirming as well. I try to, you know, as Scripture says, you know, that God sees and loves in us what He sees and loves in Christ. So, you know, Lord, how do you see others? And the reality is that He loves us all. He loves every single human being. He created directly every single human soul. So, anyway, people are always smiling at me. You know, I think it's kind of because of my beard. I mean, I do look at people and I smile and try to nod if I see, you know, if we make eye contact or something like that. And thank you, Mike W. I'm seeing the text coming up. God bless you. Thank you very much. And but sometimes I think it's the beard. They look at me and they think I'm Santa Claus or ZZ Top or something like that. And I recently trimmed it, so sorry about that. It should be couple more inches longer. But hey, I see Dave is on, Nutri Rebel. And anyway, met Dave in the Freedom Movement, and good man. You can check him out. He's kind of has a niche that he's working on in terms of I'm going to get it wrong, but biomedical molecular micromolecular science or medicine or something like this. Anyway, I think he has something to offer, so you can check him out, or at least that field. It might be a good starting point for some people. But anyway, yeah, so I trimmed my beard. You know that I started trimming my hair, and that's why I have such short hair now. So I'm trying to see. But as a priest, seriously, who cares what we look like? Except that when I think I should shave my beard, I should definitely shave my beard. My passport has run out, has expired in August. So, should I get a passport? Should I shave for my passport photo? But then I keep thinking, Canadian girl, Canadian cat, please pray for my family, Father. Okay, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Anyway, this beard is such a conversation piece, It's such a conversation piece. It's a big opening, whether it's like someone compliments me on the beard, or they say, how long did it take you to grow that beard? Or some kid looks at me and says, are you Santa Claus? Or something like this. So that's what keeps me from shaving my beard. But yeah, as priest, I mean, what we look like, that's very vain. Like, who cares what we look like, okay? But except as a means to an end, okay, as a means to an end. But anyway, I'm going out and about, and people are always smiling at me, and I'm smiling at them, and we get into conversations, and it's really every day is an adventure. Anyway, heaven and earth are full of His beauty. Heaven and earth are full of His beauty, and so maybe I'll show you some of His beauty here. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera around, and I'll stand up, and I'll go for a little walk. So here I am at a park. It's a neighborhood park. I think it's called Crerar, Crearae, Crerar maybe. And yes, it is. Here we go. Let's go over to the swing sets, or not swing set. Yeah, it is swing set. The playground here, and I'll show you it. If anyone's in Kingston watching this live stream, come on over and say hello if you want. If I'm live, we can go live together. So we'll get a little bit here, and then I'll walk over. There's another sign that has a map, so I'll show you where I am. Okay. Isn't that nice? This playground has been designed for children 1.5 to 12 years old. Well, I guess I'm too old. This is beautiful Lake Ontario. And I don't know if you can see in the distance there. I don't know if I can zoom with this or not. Oh, I can, okay. You've got those windmills. Kingston, like most cities, is politically woke, left wing, or whatever we want to call it. So they've got those windmills over there. And oh, this is nice. A dog and a woman swimming. This part here is sandy beach. It's kind of round rocks they've put down on this beach. And then over there, I was walking over there earlier, and it's all round rocks, but like where she's standing, it's rocks under the water. But here, I think they must have put sand here. So it's quite nice. And I suppose at one time all these properties were cottages at one time, but now they're year-round houses, and some very new ones. That gazebo over there, that's private property. I don't know if technically, well, I don't think technically it's private property in the water. So if someone wanted to, go in the water over there, there's nothing stopping. There's no such thing as a private beach like that. But at some point, probably where that rock wall is, their property line starts, and they don't want people going over that gazebo, obviously. That's understandable. So I'm just going to, again, isn't that nice? Look at the with the ripples in the water and the sun glittering. It's beautiful. Oh, and here comes a helicopter. If you probably can't see that. Let me zoom out. Or zoom in, I guess they call it. I can see. I've got my earphones and mic in, so maybe you can't hear anything. Let me pull that out for a second. So I don't know if the telephone mic, the camera mic, picks up the sounds around a little bit more. There is a military base in Kingston, and just further west to down Lake Ontario, there's Trenton, Ontario, which is another military base. So my guess is that that is a military helicopter. Generally, that's what we're seeing. There are private helicopters, of course, but if we're not seeing a military one, we often see them that they're orange. Okay, zoom out again. And the orange ones are the medical ones, the ones going to the hospitals. Okay. There's a little bit of a breeze, so there might be some wind noise, so I'm going to plug this mic back in. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. Oh, we got some messages. I'll have to look at that in a second, the messages. Let me just tilt this a bit. There we go. I want to walk over to this other sign here. And then we'll start talking about something, this or that of substance. It's a really beautiful day, the 15th of September, 2025. I came into Kingston because I'm having some trouble with my vehicle, the truck that was gifted to me by my dad, God rest his soul, within the last year that he was on Earth. And I can't remember if he was in the hospital or the nursing home. He was in a nursing home, but he was in and out of hospitals a lot. And just for conversation's sake, I said to him one day that I was going to trade in my leased vehicle and get a truck. And then the next day when I came in and visited him, he said, I want to pay for that truck. And my dad was not a rich man, but what was going on is that he was in the Air Force in the 1950s, and just for 5 years, but he worked up in Baffin Island, Frobisher Bay, and he was in the Air Force, and he by this time in his mid-70s, he was wearing a hearing aid. So Veterans Affairs had all this money, and at the time, Prime Minister Stephen Harper, as I recall, said, "Hey, Veterans Affairs, you shouldn't be sitting all that money. That belongs to the veterans." So through the Legion, the Royal Canadian Legion, they sought out veterans, and my dad was a member of the Legion. He was the president of the Legion at one point, but he wasn't active for the last, I'm going to say at least 10 years of his life, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10, give or take. And but anyway, they sought him out, and because of his hearing loss, they gave him enough money to buy his son a truck. He didn't know what to do with it, and I'm very grateful for that. A priest's salary is not very much, and now I don't have any salary. Anyway, I have problems with the truck, and the problem is that there's I can't afford another vehicle, so I've got to get this fixed, and it's falling apart, and they need it for 2 weeks. They need it for 2 weeks. So I dropped the truck off, and now I don't have I do have a vehicle. I have a dirt bike that is road legal. They call it a dual sport motorcycle. So I'll show you that in a bit. And I just put a bike carrier on the back of the hitch there, bike hitch carrier, and drove that down, and dropped off the truck, and now I've got a motorcycle to get around. So I can't go too far. I have driven it or ridden it, I guess we call it in the motorcycle jargon. I have ridden it to Ottawa in the past. Of course, I can't take my dog with me, so it always has to be a one-day thing, or not too far. But on this little dual sport, that's a little bit challenging, we'll say. It's not a big enough bike that really could go on what we call a 400 series highway. But anyway, that's what I'm doing down here in Kingston. Decided to get lunch and come down and take a look at the water. And then I just thought I'd do a live stream. Okay, here we go. I'm going to switch you around here to this sign right here. Okay, Prairie Park. So I guess it's telling you how far it is to a couple other parks, Lemoyne Point and Lake Ontario Park. I did consider going to Lake Ontario Park instead of coming here. I didn't know what this park was going to be like, but I didn't. To access it, you have to kind of go downtown. So I just decided to come here. So Prairie Park right in the middle there, and I guess I could go for a walk to these other places, but I'm not going to. But there you go. Let me check the live chat here for a second. Okay. Hi, Christine. Octomom. Okay. Kennedy Hall of Channel Me Tradition did a good video on YouTube 2 days ago on the woke left, liberal left. Okay. Yeah, I don't follow Kennedy Hall, but some mere tradition. Oh yeah. I understand that, I'm always typing and texting people or whatever, sending email through my phone, and autocorrect just does a terrible job. Okay, Yowie, my friend, and who's the monitor for the live is in the stream and having some car problems as well. And Ray Cleveland, Minnesota pal, appreciate that. I'm really grateful to to you all who subscribe to the channel and have the notifications on. I notice with channels that I subscribe to, even though I've got all notifications, I don't often get the notifications. And I don't know if this channel is shadow banned or not. I mean, it could be. I don't necessarily think so. Because, you know, my content is not that riveting, I don't think. I mean, it's kind of a niche thing, the things that I talk about, and some of the things I talk about will be a turn off to many people. For some, talking about the geopolitical and the technocracy and all of these things, that's a turn off. Some others, it's a turn on. When I talk about 12-step recovery stuff, that is a turn off for some people, and it's something that others appreciate. And of course, the fact that I'm a Catholic priest and I'm going to be talking about God things and church things and religious things, that's something that some people are interested in, others are not. So, and I realize that just because you're subscribed to the channel or watch these videos, it doesn't mean that you're on board with all of these topics. And I do notice when I post something on the YouTube channel, you know, use it like a blog or whatever, I do notice that you know, some are more popular than others. Some of you really like the nature scenes and pictures, the flowers and birds and whatnot, and others don't tune into that. And some of you are interested in the geopolitical, and others aren't. And I guess I should probably have you know, 2 or 3 different channels, and I might end up doing that. But to be frank with you, I haven't been spending a lot of time putting content on YouTube. There's more to life than YouTube, but you know, in some ways, you're my parishioners. So parishioners in quotation marks. You know, I don't have a parish, but I realize that some of you watch my videos, and what I have to offer, you know, is beneficial to you. It feeds you, so that's good. Okay, here I'll show you the motorcycle here. Just come around this way. There you go. So it's actually a dirt bike. Well, like I say, it's a dual sport bike, and it's the cheapest one you can get that I could find anyway. And I did a few add-ons to make it more rideable. This is something interesting on the back of the helmet I'll show you. I find it's interesting anyway. So there's a little light there, and what happens is on a motorcycle, the compression is so good, and of course it's all manual. Well, not every there are automatic transmission motorcycles actually, but anyway, since it's manual, you know, you just gear down to slow down normally, and but as you know, and the lights actually are not flat. They're LED lights on the back, right? So on the video here and the live stream, it's flashing, but it's actually a steady light. And what this is I don't know if it's a magnet inside it or a ball inside it or something like that. I don't know how the sensors work, but if I slow down just using the gears or you know, let go of the throttle, and the compression immediately slows the motorcycle down. Anyone who's ridden a bike knows this. He knows what I'm talking about. But the brake lights don't go on unless, you know, you actually touch the brakes. So this is a neat thing on the back of the helmet that I can set it at different things, but that's what it's set at. And then what happens is, see, there's different settings I can put it on. I just usually have it on that one that I put. Find all these others are unnecessary. Oops. But then see all these lights here. When I slow down without touching the brakes, that light comes on. It comes on even brighter. And there we go. So I think it's a really neat safety feature. And there you go. I rode a street bike in my 20s. I believe it was 1983 to 1992, something like that. And I got that out of necessity because, well, my dad lost his business or went bankrupt or whatever with high interest rates in the 1980s there. We lost our house and everything. And he still had a leased van, company van, and I was basically driving that for work. We moved out to the country because we lost our house, and to find affordable rent, we had to go about a half an hour outside of the city. And I was still working in the city, and anyway, the lease was coming up. It was expiring. So I didn't have a vehicle to drive anymore. Is that going to stay? And, oops. Sorry about that. What's going on here? Oop. That wasn't very nice of me. You still there? Okay, I gotta move this in front of me here. Okay, there you go. Anyhow, I just want to give you guys a better view. Yeah, it's kind of nice. So anyway, it was spring. It was April, and I think it was 1983, and I needed a vehicle, and I had $1,000 Canada Savings Bond, and the interest rate on those, I was able to buy a Canada Savings Bond for $1,000, and when I was about 18 years old, and that was a lot of money. Minimum wage back then was, I think, $3.65 or something like that, under $4. At some point it went to $4. Now I think the minimum wage is like $15 or something. But anyway, I was able to save up $1,000, and this was before my dad's business went under. But the high interest rates were there already. You know what they paid on that Canada Savings Bond? I can't remember what the term of that bond was. It was maybe 10 years or something like that. But the first year they paid 19.5%, and then following that they paid 12.5%. So in 1983, my Canada Savings Bond was worth something, and I was able to buy a motorcycle that was just the previous year. It only had 500 kilometers on it, 300 miles. And guess what I paid for it? $1,200, 1,200 Canadian dollars. So anyway, in those days, you just did a written test and you got your motorcycle license. But then there were some restrictions. I think it was night driving and maybe 400 series highways, which would be 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour or over. And so I got a friend who had a motorcycle license to ride it home for me, and he explained me how it worked. I had driven standard cars before, trucks, cars, so I knew the principle of clutches and gears and stuff like that. And then I made my appointment for the driving test, which would give you the full motorcycle license, 1 week after I bought the bike. 1 week exactly, and just taught myself how to ride the bike. Got my license 1 week later. And then I rode that bike every day for 6 months straight, April 21st to October 21st of that year, rain or shine. But come October, it was getting too cold. I had a night job. I was working at a movie theater as an usher and a doorman, and which was one of my favorite fun jobs. It was amazing. Loved that job. After I quit, I had dreams about it. Um, anyway, um, coming home, midnight and stuff like this, and when it was, getting down to 6 degrees, 5 degrees Celsius, which is about 41, 42 degrees Fahrenheit, it was too cold on my hands. And I had to stop every like 10 minutes on the way home. And got these really, I even was tried to use these winter mitts that were leather and and down, duck feather inside, which are the warmest things I ever had for my hands, and and it was too cold. I couldn't pull the brake or the clutch lever. So anyway, then my dad knew someone who was in the car business, and he got me an old 1978, so it was like 5 years old, and can I remember how much that? I think that might have been only about $2,000, maybe less. But that might have been $1,200. That car. So just goes to show you the prices of things have gone. Anyway, that's really a big tangent, but that's what I'm doing down here in Kingston. Just checking the chat again. Okay. So what shall we talk about? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. One of the reasons that I haven't put very much content on the YouTube channel is there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of problems, and more than I have any answers for. And I'd like to actually contribute to people's lives and not just be a downer and pointing out everything that's wrong in the world. And so as I'm thinking here about what to talk about, I don't want to bring anyone down, but and hopefully, if nothing else, I let you know how I deal with things on a day-to-day basis in my life, and maybe that might be helpful to you. Take what you like, leave the rest. Take what you find beneficial, leave the rest. And by the way, no one tells me what to say and no one tells me what not to say. I mean, sometimes people say this would be a good topic or something like that. Feel free to do that. But I just want to be very clear. I'm not speaking on, when I speak as a priest, I'm trying to be an ambassador for Christ and speaking, of course, the truth and being a good representative of Him. But lest people not understand the principle of detachment, what I say is not necessarily what other priests might say. Many priests might disagree with me about many things, and it certainly is not. It may or may not be something that my archbishop would agree with. The priesthood is made up of individual men, and of course, we don't want to go against our bishops, and we do take a vow, make a vow of obedience. But there are parameters to that, and just like in our faith, the Catholic faith, when someone comes into the Catholic Church or is baptized, we have a series of questions, which is basically the articles of faith, the creed. But there are many things that Everyone is at liberty to try to make sense of the world, and there are many things that are mere theories and approaches to life, etc., that are not contained in the creed. So, for example, just to make something ridiculous up, when someone comes into the Catholic Church and is about to be baptized or receive the sacrament of confirmation, they're not asked if they believe in in the coronavirus, right? They're not asked that. That's so we have people in the church who believe that everyone on earth, all the human beings on earth, experienced the worst plague in human history a few years ago, and thank God we've got political leaders that really care about us and made the tough decisions, although there were some selfish people who refused to wear masks or get vaccinated. And but God is good, so He spared enough people. Enough people were obedient that crisis passed us, and half the population of the world didn't die. Right? There are people in the church that believe that, or to some degree. Myself, I believe the exact opposite. There never was a pandemic. It was a complete scamdemic. And that's why, I spoke about the outward sign of submission. My interpretation of what was going on is a valid, valid way of understanding things and still be a Catholic in good standing. Okay? So that would just be, an obvious example to any of the viewers here that, so in the Catholic Church, we're free to believe all sorts of things, but there are essentials, the dogmas of the faith, and the what's in the creed that we all must believe in. We must be close to I'd have to look on a map, but I think we must be close to the airport. One of the airports is an island airport, I think, or anyway, God bless them, eh? That's a small little Cessna or something. Not very high. Not very high at all. Yeah, anyway, so what I say is my own opinions, and I'm a work in progress. I understand things differently now than I did 5 years ago, and 10 years ago, 15 years ago, etc., also on all sorts of topics. So, we're all works in progress. So, let's try. That's one of the things I try to do, is not put individuals in boxes and say they're always the same. And if I haven't heard from someone in a long time, I might be able to say, well, they said this, but they may or may not believe that. I was talking to someone close to my family not too long ago, and I asked her, what did you think of me during, the lockdowns and all that, because I was going to the freedom rallies. I never wore the outward sign of submission. I saw that as, purely experimental at best, and yeah, something very nefarious at worst. And anyway, this family member said, well, and she's quite reasonable. She always listened to me, God bless her. But she said, about me, she said, I thought you were taking a lot of risk. In other words, she thought that I was putting my life in danger, that I might catch the Rona, and I might die, right? And that's why, I did that video, all Catholics should do this. And it was a video I did while I was driving up to Pembroke and going up past Mazenod Lake in Bon Echo Provincial Park, and beautiful, beautiful country up there, all the pine trees and everything, and the higher hills. I won't call them mountains, They probably are called mountains, but compared to the Rocky Mountains, they're not. They're not. But I did that video saying, every Catholic should go to these freedom rallies because none of us are wearing masks. We're all shaking hands and hugging everyone, and none of us have been gotten sick, hospitalized, and died. So I kind of like teased a little bit and said, well, God is protecting us. God, it's a miracle or something like that. But it's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's just common sense, because it was a common cold and building up immunities. My ideas of what viruses are and all that type of thing and our immune system is completely changed. But anyway, so she said, I thought you were taking a lot of risks. And then I said, well, what do you think now? What do you think now? And God bless her, like, what a humble person. She said, and I mean humble in the sense of virtuous, in that with this virtue. She said, I think you were right all along. And I said, well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. And how many of us would not love our politicians and church leaders, priests and bishops, to have that type of humility and say, no, you guys were right all along. But anyway, don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath for that. But that's really what is needed for credibility to be restored. That's really what's needed for people to admit. In the 12 steps of recovery, the 10th step is continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. Now, we all have blind spots, and we may not always see it, but when we see something, then we admit, oh, I was wrong. Okay? So that's what really needs to be done. And much of my priestly ministry, since all of that, going back to 2020, so much of my ministry is trying to help people stay in the church and have faith and not become cynical or give in to cynicism and mistrust. Ultimately, we need to trust God. That's who we put our trust in. And but so much, and I know because I go through it myself. How can I trust this person, this authority person, whatever, when they got it so wrong about something that was so obvious to me? And I think that we in the church, speaking for myself and many who I know over the years, not speaking for them, but my kind of observation is I had become quite lazy, and in this one particular sense, when I saw, and this was going back ever before I went to the seminary, when I saw that there's something wasn't quite a right in the parish or in the diocese, what did I do? What did many of us do? We said, yeah, but the Pope doesn't say that. And we would point to John Paul II. Of course, we had our own blinders on about some other things, and things that we didn't like I don't know, like liturgical dances at the Vatican audiences, or even World Youth Day and some of these things. And I could mention some more controversial things, for example, a meeting at Assisi, etc. But in general, that's what we say. Yeah, well, the priest or the bishops are not listening to the Pope, and we did that. And then when Joseph Ratzinger became the Pope, well, what did we say? The cafeteria is closed. We used to say, well, people who are they're not really that serious Catholics, or they're in the parish and they're trying to do this, or they're doing all these things that we consider crazy, and against the teaching of the church, like, for example, female ordination or things like this. We or birth control would be another good example. We called them cafeteria Catholics, you know. So when Joseph Ratzinger became Pope Benedict XVI, what did we say? The cafeteria is closed, and so many actions that Pope Benedict XVI did, and his writings, we received spiritual nourishment from, and encouragement, and hope, especially those who wanted a restoration of tradition, or didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, remember, Vatican II ended in 1965, and so, I graduated grade 13. At that time, high school, you could graduate in grade 12 or grade 13. So grade 13 was kind of like a preparatory year for university, we'll say that, or first year university, and but at the high school level, so it's more anyway, more intimate, instead of a huge big class in university and stuff like that. Anyway, I graduated in grade 13 in 1981. So 1981, that was only 16 years, 1/6, right, after the close of Vatican II. So with liturgical experimentation and stuff like that, and into the mid-80s and longer, and then some of it is still lingering with that. Like one priest said about this one parish, they consider themselves avant-garde, and I said, avant-garde? They're stuck in the 80s. He says, that's where avant-garde is nowadays. That's just kind of joking, right? And they haven't moved on, and moving on means more and more of embracing the richness of our faith that had been kind of explained away or dumbed down through the liturgies after the Second Vatican Council. And so with under Benedict XVI, there seems to be a movement towards some of that, and some affirmations for those who cherish that, and who were taking their faith seriously, at least from my perspective. And then, I don't want to go into all the details of what happened in 2013 and following, but hey, saying the Pope says this certainly came back to bite us, many of us. And I tried early on in 2013, in the summer and fall of 2013, to do my best to give the benefit of the doubt and explain things. But yeah, after a while, well, what happens? What does how does one recover from appealing to authority to bring us consolation and even defense of following the teachings of the church? And here I'm thinking not liturgically but moral teaching. And when these things are coming into question by those in positions of authority, and how do we deal with that? Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it's a bit of a wake-up call, and a bit of it's a return to personal responsibility. I think that's what it is, and we need to understand that only God is perfect, and we need to believe in Him. Here, the rubber hits the road. The rubber hits the road. we still respect authority, the successors of the apostles. Okay, so there's someone in the chat there, David Way. He's writing in all capitals. Please don't write in all capitals. It means you're angry, you're yelling. That's the internet talk. And if you don't like what I'm saying, life is short. Life is short. Stop wasting your time here. But anyway, stick around, subscribe, hit the notification, watch my other videos. Maybe you will learn something. But for others in the chat, I would just encourage you not to, well, do what you want. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do, what not to do. But anyway, as I've done other videos explaining to you, explain to anyone who would listen about how bishops are chosen, to lower expectations of what we want. Not even if we look at the history of the church and those canonized saints that we respect who were bishops, bishop martyrs, and bishops who stood up for the faith and were great apologists, great theologians. They're few and far between, right? They're few and far between. And there is one true religion, David, one true religion. And that is the religion that is divinely instituted by Jesus Christ, who is God incarnate. So, and all other religions, if we look at philosophy of religion, they're all those groups that are called religions are religions only to the extent that they are in accordance with the Holy Catholic Church, which Jesus founded. So anyway, I just noticed that all of David's messages were deleted. So I guess he changed his mind and deleted all his messages. So there you go. Okay, so what shall we talk about? Here we are. We're already an hour in. It's a beautiful day, though. I feel like I can stay out here all day. Let me just check the chat again, see if there's anything besides. Oops, sorry for my thumb there. Put it like this. Oh, that guy was on a real thing. Someone says rapture soon. No, no. Rapture is the rapture is a heresy. So anyway, Jesus will come again, but when he comes again, it'll be the general judgment. And if you hadn't died already and received your particular judgment, you're going to receive your particular judgment when he comes again. And so there's no rapture. Ever had an interview, Father? I find they are stressful, LOA. An interview, like a job interview? Is that what someone is asking? Okay. I spoke at the beginning of this live stream about, how I go out and, this is something any of us can do. We just say, Lord, use me as your instrument. It doesn't mean, that every thought or word that comes out of your mouth is from God's mind to my lips, so to speak. But excuse me. But it's just a permission thing. Lord, use me as your instrument, and then we try to cooperate with that, and we try to speak with others as well, just give him that blank check at the beginning of the day and before you meet people and whatnot. And this actually applies to an interview, a job interview or something, which one of the chatters was asking about. Judd Peplow was asking about that. So I'll touch it on that. But at the beginning of the video, I was saying, like, every day is an adventure. Who I'm going to meet and whatnot. Like this couple that I met, just before I started this live stream. We had a great chat about AI, and he is a salesman in the tech industry. He says, I don't understand it, I just sell it, whatever. And he works for a variety of companies, or a variety of companies that sell various products, softwares, and stuff like that. So we were having this discussion, and I hope and pray when they go off that it was a highlight for them as well. It was certainly not every day that they talked to a priest, and the things that I mentioned to them. And one of the things was back in the late 80s when I was doing my undergrad, late 80s, early 90s, when I was trying to take a course on philosophical anthropology, that is, what is the nature of man, right? All of the courses were all about AI. So that's like 35 years ago, roughly. So there's nothing new. And he talked about this company, one of the companies that he works for has these, like, the robot dogs and whatnot, and he's talking about robotics and how it's going to replace people's jobs and everything like this. And he wasn't seeing it as a good thing. And we were talking about AI and about how students use AI to write essays. He says, well, you don't even have to ask, it just kind of comes up. He said, I don't know how that works, but I wrote an essay on this topic that your professor is asking you to write about. Do you like it, or something like this? Anyway, so when he mentioned the robotics, let's say that's a bottom-up AI, and he says exactly. So I said, well, I learned that in 1989 or something like that. When they were talking about that. But the big problem with AI, or the reality of AI, it's not as smart as you think, okay? It's not, sure, whatever information that a computer program has access to, whatever that data, okay, fine, it can bring some answers and whatnot, but ultimately, computer science is just kind of faster than it used to be. When I took computer science in grade 11, 1978, 1979, that was, we had to type in the cards, and we had a stack of cards, that punched holes in them. It was a special, I think, IBM, kind of typewriter, and whenever they would pump out these cards, we had to put, if you drop the cards there, where's your program, because it was one instruction after the other, and then you had to wait to the next day, had to bring it over to the school board, where they had a huge computer room, and you feed it in, it would come out, and if there was an error in it somewhere, it'd just come out an error, like you couldn't do it, or incomplete. And then if all the cards were lined up and you didn't make any typing errors, and that the program that I wrote, or that a student wrote, was sound, then you would come out with the answer. But all it is, it's all flowcharts. It's all flowcharts. It's all if this, then that. If yes, no. And AI is simply making it more complex so that it can analyze its own its own flowchart, and then there's some Y's in there, right? That are Y, like the letter Y, if this way, that way, whatever. Then there's some options, and that's how the top-down computer program, like computer learning the rules of chess, and then getting better and better at it. The more games that it plays, the more that people are engaged with the computer. At first, it doesn't win that many games, and then it's just a statistical analysis. moving this way, making this move with this pawn as a new opening move, and then this one and this one. It's got all these choices. Well, take one, and then it would analyze statistically. And the fatal flaw is because the beginning premise of this AI, going back to philosophical anthropology and the fake anthropology that is AI, is that mistakenly thinking that human being is ultimately a material brain that is more complex than has more, is a being, a physical being. So they don't believe in soul. At least the professor I had was a materialist atheist, very open about that. And the thought experiment at the beginning of the course was, to imagine if a human being has no arms, is it still a human being? Yes. What if no arms, no legs? Yes, still a human being. Okay, what if it was possible that someone could be, set up to artificial heart and lungs and whatnot, and it's just the head, but the head was conscious and thinking and stuff. Would that still be a human being? And of course, you can't separate the head and the body, okay? But let's just say that's where they went, and then they say, well, what if it was just a brain, And so that's their starting point. That's what they think, and they don't understand that intellect and free will is a faculty of the soul, which is immaterial, and we have. See, our free will is such that. I'll just stay in the realm of belief, let alone actions. Our free will is such that we can believe something in the face of zero evidence, and we can refuse to believe something in the face of overwhelming evidence. And we can act against our conscience. We can act against our better judgment. We are unpredictable. We're unpredictable. So that's very important. And I'm sure you've encountered AI programming, whether it be voices or through a telephone call or whatever, or even on YouTube, and you can kind of tell. You can tell when some things are AI. Is it so good that some things you can't? Well, maybe in some things, but I don't know if you've ever had any phone calls like that where it's obviously computer on the other side, but they've really done a good job at imitating a human being, even with a little giggle or an or ah in there or something like that. Well, you just ask them a question that is totally out of left field, figuratively speaking, and it throws them for a loop. They can't answer that, and you can tell, you're not human. This is not human. It's crazy. It's been a long time, but it's going back to the 80s again, and that movie Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. And I worked in the movie theater, so that's why I know about that. But I couldn't tell you all about that. But anyway. Anyway, that's what we were discussing with it. I hope this couple goes home and thinks, oh, we just had a chat with a priest. Maybe can the Holy Spirit, can their guardian angels work with that a little bit? Can, will they be open one step closer to being in communion with God and being reconciled to Him and to His holy church, I stopped in at a place yesterday, not too far from my place, where not too far from my place, where there's a sign that says "Farm Fresh Eggs," free run eggs, and they also have like a cabin rental. I said, I've been thinking of going in there. Let me go in there. And I met a lovely lady. I guess it's a man, woman there, you know, I introduce myself. I tell them I'm a neighbor, how many miles away I am from them, and I've seen your sign, and I thought it was a nice day. I thought I'd come in and get some eggs from you. And there's a lot of people in my area that are selling eggs, and theirs is a little bit more expensive, you know, but nonetheless, it's not going to break the bank, so to speak. So, you know, I bought a dozen eggs from them. I'll try them. I compared them to another place that charges they were charging $7.50 a dozen. This other place was charging $5 a dozen. So you know, I couldn't wait to get home and try them. I fried up two eggs from the $5 and two eggs from the $7.50, and they tasted exactly the same. Maybe nutritionally, the $7.50 were better. I don't know, but it's good to have different sources. Anyway, we're in conversation, and as I am apt to do, I would say, "Are you Catholic?" "Oh, yes, I am." "Oh, okay, okay." Anyway, oh, so then a little more in the conversation, I asked them which parish they go to, because where we're at, there's probably, I would say, 4 parishes that one could go to, kind of equidistant. I'm not even sure where the parish boundaries are. Anyway, then she told me that she doesn't practice her faith, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, no judgment," like, you know. Um, and another airplane. You probably can't hear them because I got my mic here, but yeah. Looks like the same plane's going over and over again. I wonder if it's a flight school or something. Anyway, yeah, you know, first and foremost, I'm just trying to be neighborly, and then we'll get to know, and then we'll like conversion and evangelization is, you know, it's the work of the Holy Spirit on a soul, and the work of a guardian angel on his ward, or whatever you want to call it, and so, you know, anyway, it turns out, you know, she's living common law for 30 years. And I didn't, you know, I don't, you know, I don't beat an eyelash, so to speak, as the expression goes. I just, you know, go along, not affirming, but not condemning. She knows exactly where I live, and if the Holy Spirit prompts her at some point, everyone has problems, to stop in, then I'm happy to guide her. But, you know, I really try to help those who want the help, and I don't find it beneficial to go in blazing, burning bridges. Although the other night I went directly to this young man who was, I think, 22 years old. I met him at the gas station. So I get into conversations with people all over the place. And but anyway, I asked you know, "Are you Catholic?" And he said, this young guy, he says, "Yes." And I asked him if he goes to church. He said, "Yes." And I said, "Where?" And he goes to some evangelical thing. And no, right away, I was very tired, and it was late, and I laid into him right away. I said, "Look, time is short. Here, what are you doing? You're Catholic. What are you doing going there? They don't have sacraments. They don't have absolution of sins. They don't have a valid Eucharist. They don't have any of this stuff." Well, you know, and then we got into a whole bunch of things, and I was giving him free, unsolicited advice about how to find a good wife, because, you know, people are lost. They are absolutely lost. And he was very, very receptive to what I was saying, which is, of course, very countercultural. And so again, I can't help but think that guy went home thinking, because I certainly challenged some of his worldviews. There's some, as he's trying to make sense at 22 of life. And I hope and pray, Lord, and my prayer, same with this video or whatever, Lord, anything that from you, or anything that can be used by you then stir up the Holy Spirit, help them, right? But anything that's just from me or maybe a little bit off, let them forget about it. Let them just forget about it. Who cares? Who cares? And this is a type of detachment that I'm just going to go right into that job interview question. So thank you for asking a question. That's awesome. And it's a type of a detachment that is kind of like, how important is it in the grand scheme of things? Now, you might need a job, you might really want a job, and that's fine. But so much depends on our attitude. And it's okay if you don't get a particular job. You do your best. Don't sabotage it. Don't sabotage your interview, your job interview. But it's okay. Be yourself. You're just speaking to another human being. That's all that's happening. We're equals. No matter what their position is, you're equals in the eye of God, eyes of God. Okay, so so take that pressure off of yourself, and I'll say this about job interviews in my life experience. This is what I think for anyone who is looking for a job. There's two things that really are the most important, and if you're looking for a job and you're going to a job interview and you want to be hired, well, they're looking for someone to hire. Is that same plane or not? It is. Or same type of plane. There's two things. Are you teachable? And are you pleasant? Especially for jobs where you're going to be working with other people, right? And say, you're going to be seeing those people, 5 times a week, 8 hours a day. You don't want someone who's annoying, or who stinks, or something. Just checking. Or who's vulgar. You want someone who's pleasant. So, besides kind of like who you know type of thing, because often jobs are got because someone someone asks. If someone has a good a good attitude, that goes along. Someone has a good employee. If an employer has a good employee, well, birds of a feather flock together. So the chances are that that person's friends might also have a good work ethic and whatnot. So often they'll say, well, especially if it's a job that can be trained for, or so-called unskilled, just say, hey, do you have any friends that are looking for a job? So a lot of times jobs are gotten because of who you know in that sense. But besides that, employers just looking for someone who will be able to learn the job. Of course, you're looking for some basic qualities of dependability and whatnot, and be able to do the job. But most jobs, a lot of jobs, anybody could do. And is much more important than experience, because someone might say someone has 20 years experience at a particular job, particular company, and then they're applying to a similar type of company. Now that employer might say, oh, this person is already trained, and they're going to know how that other company works, so we might really benefit from hiring this person. That's true. An employer might think that. But they also might think, and they might find this by experience as well, that such persons might come into a job saying, well, I know all about this job. Don't tell me what. I've been doing this for 20 years or 30 years or 10 years or whatever, 5 years, whatever it is. I know all about this job. And but as an employer, maybe I don't want, I want my business to stand out. I have things the way I think that I want them to be done. And they might find that someone who has a lot of experience is kind of stuck in their ways. And so they don't want them. So, so that's the most important thing. And then, okay, the job's going to go to somebody. And we put our trust in God. And we say, okay, well, if I get this, great. If I don't, I don't. And, but sometimes, if you don't apply, you won't get it. One of the summers, when I was doing my undergrad, one of the summer jobs I had was a merchandiser for a snack food, chocolate bar, and candy company. And I got hired, and basically I would be going into retail stores and checking the merchandise, checking the expiry dates, or the best before dates, and taking older product off and replacing it and all of this type of thing, and setting up displays to try to sell our product, and it's kind of a customer service, like from kind of like the wholesaler perspective, to the retailers. And I found out after I got the job that that particular company, all of the other merchandisers were women, usually stay-at-home moms, or they're moms, and because there's a flexibility in the schedule, and so I was the only male, I was the only man doing this job for this company. Well, it turns out that I was the only one applied for the job. No, I could do it, and I was pleasant enough, and etc. But had a competent woman apply for that job, she probably would have gotten it ahead of me. And just to show you how things work, this was down at University of Ottawa's, I guess, student employment center that I would, or office or whatever. I went down to looking for a job, as the semester was ending. And they had jobs posted on a bulletin board. And it was a job within the city of Ottawa. It was actually the kind of the east end of Ottawa. And but they had it on out of town jobs instead of in the city jobs. And the reason is that it was up there was because, the person doing the hiring lived about 45 minutes outside of Ottawa in a country village. So when I guess whoever was, human error, they just saw that and they just put it on out of town boards because that's where the person hiring lived. And no one, I guess, very few people looked at that board because it said out of town. So, yep. Anyway, hope that helps. I haven't done a video yet on the third step of the 12 steps, but there's a suggested prayer in Alcoholics Anonymous, in the book called Alcoholics Anonymous, affectionately known by AA members as the Big Book, even though I have a copy that's really small. But they call it the Big Book. And happen to know the page number on it, and anyone who's gone to meetings knows, AA meetings knows it. It's page 63. And suggested prayer. It says you can say it in your own words, or if you have particular religious prayers, you can do that. But here's the way it goes. Now, I might have adapted it to my own liking over the last 40 years, so it may not be exact these words, but it's pretty close. And the way it goes is, so remember the third step is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And again, as we understood Him, it just means, how do you understand God at this moment? You turn your life and your will over to Him at that, as you understand it. Not as someone else understands it, God. I don't mean it as God, but you know what I mean. Wherever you're at, do that, and our understanding of God will grow. God is infinite, we're finite, right? So don't worry about that, those phrasing. Anyway, here's the way the prayer goes. God, I offer myself to Thee, or to You, to build with me and to do with me as You will. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do Your will. Take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Your power, Your love, and Your way of life. May I do Your will always. That's the third step prayer, suggested third step prayer of Alcoholics Anonymous, give or take a few words. But that relieve me of the bondage of self is right in there. Now, from the beginning, I've taken that as relieve me of my self-consciousness, of being overly concerned about what other people think of me. Use me as Your instrument. It's all right there, right? Remember that prayer attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. I mean, probably didn't write it, but Lord, make me an instrument of Your peace, right? And so that relieve me of the bondage of self. So, for example, okay, say that there's someone speaking, and there's to I don't know 20 people, or 30 people, and I notice that maybe this thought occurs to me that maybe they would benefit from a glass of water. And so I have this thought, and that's a good thought, right? That would be a nice thing if I just went over, got a cup and got some water and brought it over to them, just going. But the old me, or I may not feel like doing it. I may feel self-conscious. I may feel like I don't want to draw attention to myself. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get up. Whatever the reasons why. But I don't want to. I don't like being the center of attention. I kind of got over that after working at the movie theater, and then of course becoming a priest. You really get over that. You're gonna have to get over that pretty quick because all eyes are on you. All eyes are on you, whether you like it or not. And like at Mass or when you're giving a homily or whatever, and so relieve me of the bondage of self is like forget about that. Forget about that. That's we could say get behind me, Satan. And, some you may think of like that, but just ignore that. Ignore that. Relieve me of the bondage. Who cares? Stop being self-conscious. Just go get that cup of water. Go do it. If they don't want it, what's the worst that can happen? They say no. Whatever. And hey, say someone is a smart aleck and they make some sort of crack joke or something like that, and people laugh, and then, so what? So what? Hey, some people laugh. That laughter is good. They laughed at me. So what? So what? How important is it? It's not important at all. It's good. So, at an interview, take the pressure off yourself. Remember, there's just another human being over there whom God loves, and be friendly. I have talked about it on another live stream, and I want to do some videos about this, about how to navigate the system when it comes to traffic court, because I'm learning a lot about that lately. And I'll give you this one thing: the justice of the peace, the court clerks, the prosecutors, or here in Canada we call them crown prosecutors, all the administrative staff, everything. This is every day they go in to work, and it's familiar setting for them, and it's another day at the office. They're processing, dozens, if not hundreds, of we might call files, or tickets, or dealing with dozens of defendants every single day. They've heard it all. It's kind of like a priest in confession. After a while, you can't surprise a priest. Okay, your particulars of your sins, fine. But the types of sin and everything, you know, okay, yeah, we've heard it. Like, don't you think you're so different? No, not really, not really. And it's the same thing with defendants. They go to trial. They think they've got particular reasons. They've heard it all. They've heard it all before. But get this: all the regular people, all the people that are going down there dealing with their tickets, parking tickets, speeding tickets, bylaw infractions or whatever, most of the time they didn't even know there was a law against it or something like that. And they're going down there, like no one wants to be there. They're all everyone is kind of in a bad mood, in a way. And so it's kind of at the risk of sounding new ages. There's all this negative energy going on there, and all the employees there, right? So, you know, the justice of the peace or judge, it's just a job that someone gave them. You know what I mean? They're not better than you. You know, the justice of the peace wears a gown, and the court clerk wears a gown. Well, I go in there with my cassock. Hey, you're not the only one who can wear a robe, right? But but see, if we just realize, you know, these are human beings, right? These are my brothers and sisters. If they're not already my brothers and sisters in Christ, they're potentially. Please God, I mean, it was God's desire that everyone go to heaven. Please God, we'll see each other in heaven. They're not my. There's an adversarial dynamic goes on, but they're not my enemies. They're not my enemy. They're just doing a job. So I go down there with this like deliberate, a chosen, positive attitude, and that's what I go in with, and I smile and I assert myself, and I don't feel. Is there some nervousness? Yeah, I guess because you're kind of, you know, it's an unfamiliar setting, but in general, it's hello,
Hi, sorry.
nice dog, poodle. Is that a poodle? Is
Mostly.
mostly. Oh, one of those. What are they?
One of the doodles.
Doodles. Right.
I think one of his grandparents is golden and the rest is doodle.
Okay. Yeah, golden doodle. That's what they call it.
Doodle,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, they're beautiful dogs. Yeah.
Thank you.
God bless you. See, she probably doesn't even know I'm a priest, but I just gave her a blessing, you know. So anyway, God bless you. There's a young woman walking her dog in the park with her poop bag. um, but yeah, and so one of the Crown prosecutors I was talking to last week was saying it was very refreshing. Yeah, because they're dealing with people that are nervous and they're just processing files. And let's just bring the human element in there. And again, how important is it? So just, you know, go into a job interview. It's just another human being. Be your pleasant self, and if you don't get the job, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. I mean, you might really want it, but you know, I remember one of my ex-girlfriends. Of course, all my girlfriends are ex-girlfriends. You understand that, right? But you know, before I went to the seminar, I dated, and I had different girlfriends, different times. And I remember this one who she went and got a job, and she told me about the interview. And it was kind of her personality, and she wouldn't have done it, I don't think, if she didn't think the person would have been receptive. But in the middle of the interview, she just took she had one of those red clown noses, spongy things, and I don't know if the person was looking at notes or something. She put it on, and then when the person looked at her, she just cracked her up and laughed, and she got hired. That wouldn't work in every situation. I don't recommend that. I don't think that's a good strategy or whatever. But according to her personality and the person who's doing the interviewing, that was great. Good. We need some levity around here. We need someone who can joke around and love your sense of humor. You're hired, because it's more about, you know, being, you know, being around other people. And I'll leave this one thing regarding jobs, and it's kind of related to interviews. When I was about 22 years old, 22, 23, something like that, I was able to get this job. I asked the owner of this company that I was working for, like in warehouse and delivery, if I could get a full-time job from him at this retail store that he owned, and like in sales. And I remember I was very bold. It was 1980, must have been 1985, 1986, I guess it was. And I was very bold. I asked him for a salary, a yearly salary of $11,000, $5.50 an hour. And anyway, he decided to hire me, put me in that position and whatnot. Anyway, there was only two guys, me and a fellow who's just a little bit older than I am, working in this store. All the others were older ladies, and it was a lighting fixture store, lighting and lamps and stuff like this. And as such, certain products would come in like chandeliers or various lighting fixtures that needed some assembly. And in general, the ladies would be kind of when there's no customers in the showroom, they would be in the back, putting on all the little things together. And then when it was ready, they would put them out on the showroom floor, and it was up to me and this other fellow. And usually we were working alone. We had some shifts that were overlapped, but in general, we had to cover the whole week with us guys there. And they would, the ladies, for example, if a customer said I would like that, they would often ask the guys, to me or this other fellow, to go downstairs to the stock room and get it, especially if it was a heavier item or it was up on a ladder or something like that. We would do that. But these lighting fixtures, they would assemble, they would put them out on the showroom floor, and it was our job to go in and do the wiring up in the ceiling, or if it was a wall sconce or something in the wall. And sometimes we'd have so much stock coming in that it was, I couldn't get it all up in one shift, all installed. And within a couple hours, my arms were hurting so much, like being up on the ladder. My body was like, and it was so difficult, and I was stressed out. And so I was sharing this one time in a 12-step group, and this older man who had a lot of life experience and stuff, I was sharing this with him probably just privately after a meeting or something. How's it going? I was telling him, getting some physical stress at work. And he said these wise words. Well, first of all, he asked a question. He said, who are you trying to please? Who are you trying to please? I did that. What do you mean, who am I trying to please? That didn't make sense to me, right? But he was probably right, like at a kind of a subconscious level. And he says, are you trying, like, you want to keep your job, I guess, like you're trying to please the manager or something. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to work hard, and, who knows what, I don't know. I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but he said this. He said, not everyone is suited for every job. Maybe physically you're not suited for this job, or maybe you think that this job is requiring more than what it actually is requiring. So he said, why don't you slow down? Easy does it. That's one of the slogans in the 12-step groups. Easy does it. And slow your pace down. It's okay if by the end of the day your arms and your body is sore. That's good. You put in a full day's work. But it shouldn't happen, within the first hour or two of your shift that you're worn out physically. Slow down and pace yourself. And if you don't do enough work, if you don't install enough of these fixtures according to what is required, then accept that first of all, that's the manager's job to decide what to do with that, and to say, I need to hire someone else, or Anthony is not really suited for this. We'll find something else for him, or we'll fire him. And it's okay if you get. I've never been fired from a job, but but um, that's not your job. That's the manager's job. So just do it. And if you do get fired, just realize that not every job is for everyone. No one can do everything. You know. I mean, I love sports when I was young, but I could never skate good enough to be a professional hockey player, and I was too small. Well, I shouldn't say too small because baseball can be any size, but I didn't have enough muscle and strength to really compete in baseball to make the major leagues or something like. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone can be a professional athlete. Not everyone can you know do this, that, or the other thing. So it's okay. It's okay. So take the pressure off yourself. I'm going to check the chats one more time, and then it must be mid-afternoon or something by now, and I better get home to my dog, and I have some other work to do as well at the Hermitage. So let's see. Reminds me of RoboCop. Even though it's fiction. Love Blade Runner. Thank you. Okay. It's been a long time since I did a live stream. These things are long. We're at an hour 41 right now. Depending on when YouTube uploads it on your time frame, it may not be exactly that. Some things may have cut out because of connections or whatever. But it was good to be on live stream. Leave some comments about some things to talk about. I want to talk about my kind of worldview about things. Love from Ireland. Woohoo! Mary, thank you. And I really want to talk about how I see the contrast between the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, and the life with that we live on earth, and the systems that we're in. And it's a bit of a red pill, a bit of a black pill, but I want to counterweight everything with the reality that this world that God has created is good. And fundamentally, human beings are good in nature. We have a wound in nature, so we're all capable of terrible things, and none of us are perfect, right? But, and we sin, and we're capable of sinning, absolutely. You remember Brother Lawrence, The Practice, the Presence of God? Maybe you've read that book or not. And he was asked, Brother Lawrence, it must be so hard for you in this world, being so holy, and with all the sin that's going on. And his response was something to the effect of, actually, knowing what human beings are capable of in terms of sin, and knowing what I don't know if he said it or not, but about himself, but knowing what I'm capable of sin, I'm surprised there isn't a whole lot more of it. And that's true. And most people I'm going around, and most people are good, decent people. And, there's a lot of fear about things that can happen, and then people are going to be at each other's throat, and starvation, and looting, and all sorts of things that people think of. Well, I think of the ice storm in eastern Canada, including Ontario and northeastern United States back in 1998, a huge ice storm where people lost electricity for weeks on end. And there wasn't a lot of looting. There was a lot of people helping one another. That's what actually happened. And even during the scamdemic, when we lost power for a couple of days, one of my neighbors who, bought the narrative hook, line, and sinker, came over to make sure everything was okay. Asked me if I need any water or anything like that, because I didn't have a generator and therefore I had no access to the well water and stuff like that. And you know, um, you know, people generally want to be good people and want to help one another. That's so, heaven and earth are full of His glory. We need to look for it, and it is so gorgeous out here. I gotta show you, man. I gotta show you the reflection now. There, the sun is going to be behind the trees there, but I'm sure the camera doesn't catch it. But the beautiful breeze, you can smell the water. It's Lake Ontario, but it doesn't smell like pollution. It's really, really nice. And, you know, all of you, all of you um, who watch these videos, and those who reach out to me for help in one way or another, advice or a listening ear or my 2 cents worth, um, you're never burdening me. You're never burdening me. You affirm my priesthood when you ask for help. I'm so blessed. I used to say when I was in the country parish for 10 years, I'm the most blessed priest in the whole diocese. And I hope that every priest can say that about his own assignment. But, ever since I've been given permission to do what I'm doing, um, I my attitude is I'm the most blessed priest in the whole world. Um, um, but again, every priest, ought to be doing that. But for me, that ought to have that attitude. Please God. And if he doesn't, if you're a priest and you're watching this and you don't, you're not that happy in your assignment, then talk to your bishop. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to thrive. Okay? And sometimes we just think, well, whatever the bishop says, that's God's will because of my vow of obedience. Well, yes. However, the bishop can't read minds and he doesn't know the desires of your heart. So, if you share that with him, if you have some other idea for ministry, or you need a change, then go to him and let your bishop know. And he will try to accommodate you if he can. And that's my experience with the bishops. And I'm doing something very unique, I guess. I'm a priest in good standing with full faculties. Despite what controversial things I might be in, but like I said to my own archbishop, I correspondence with him when he was wondering how my ministry is going, and I said, well, mostly it's not exclusive, especially at the last couple of years it's leveled off a bit, but mostly I minister to Catholics who feel rejected by their parish priest and the bishops in general, and and his response to me was just simply thank you. Do you have any questions about that? No, just thank you. He knows. The bishops, I'm looking at this picnic table here, and it's like if on this picnic table, if we thought in miniature, there was all the Catholics in the world, right? And and there's people all in the middle here, and there's people over at this edge and on this edge, and some of them are in danger of falling off the edge, and and the bishops, they just want to keep everyone on the table. They don't want to push anyone over the edge, and that's why that's one of the way to understand why the bishops do what they do and don't do maybe what some of us might want them to do. They're trying not to alienate people. Although one of my friends, old childhood friends, said not too long ago, he says the problem with the church today is trying to be too inclusive. He's got a good point there. But that's the mindset of the bishops. He doesn't, and it's just the same thing with, again, if there's any priests watching, your bishop wants you to be happy. He wants you to minister to the people that you can minister to. And so, but from my experience in the parish is that, repeatedly I was asked to compromise my conscience by, good-meaning people, well-meaning people. They don't mean it. They don't understand. They don't know what they're asking usually, and it's difficult because I don't want to push them over the edge. So, and then my people-pleasing, codependent stuff. I don't want to say no, and I want to please people. All that. It was too much for me, and it was also. I don't want to say like I left parish ministry because it was bad. There was a lot of good things, and I know there's some, like especially former parishioners who watch my videos, and you benefited from my parish ministry. I understand that. There are many people who say, Father, you should be in a parish, because we need you in the parish. And I understand all that. But, but so much of a priest's time and energy goes into trying to help in a parish, goes into trying to help those who don't want the help. And I'm really blessed because I get to help those who want the help. And, like I said to the other viewer, in this live stream, who is leaving some really kind of antagonistic, seemingly antagonistic comments, writing in all capitals and everything like that, challenging the whole concept of religion and everything. Life is short. Go somewhere else. Why are you wasting time here? Whereas, when I don't do many videos, the video that comes up mostly, because a lot of people, I guess a lot of Catholics are asking it, is the video I did many years ago called Can a Catholic Practice Yoga? And at the end of that video I said, if you're upset because I said a Catholic should not practice yoga, why are you upset? Who am I to you? I'm just some guy online. Okay, I'm a priest, but you can find a dozen priests to tell you that yoga is perfectly fine. Why are you upset? Well, I guess you're upset because your conscience is bothering you, because I just told you the truth, that yoga is a Hindu thing. It's not compatible with Christianity. Hindus are trying to escape the material world. As Christians, we are body and soul. And the earth and material that God made is good. Good. It's not evil. It's not something to be escaped from. And later when I talk about the 11th step of the 12 steps, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Meditation is thinking about something. It's not thinking about nothing. It's not escaping reality, and whatever one might think of, whatever stretching exercises and poses and all that type of yoga, I say, yeah, okay, well, but it's a Hindu thing. So, I don't know. You can't have, there's an old Indian saying, goes something like, North American Indian saying, it's hard to have, or you can't have one foot in one canoe and another foot in another canoe. So, I don't know. Choose between Christ or Hinduism. And if you want to be Hindu, well, go practice yoga. Go be a good Hindu. And but if you want to go to heaven, stay with Jesus. Okay, that's the way I put it. Okay, I know some people left some other checks. So I'll just check that, then give my blessing there. And I really feel good about coming online again for a live chat, and we'll see what's going on here. Okay. I have a question for you. I saw a video of a Catholic priest saying you can't be a member of the Democratic Party, be a member of the Catholic Church, because you can't support abortion in the Catholic Church. My question is, if I don't support abortion yet I don't want the Liberals to be in power anymore, can I still vote Conservative, or should I, oops, just lost it, find another party and pray instead? I was part of your parish ministry, LOL. My name is Patrick. Oh, of course, Patrick, good man. What a good man Patrick is. Why you decided to leave the parish ministry as well? I currently go to St. Faustina's. Okay, very good, Patrick. Yeah, well, politics and political parties. The thing about political parties is Nah, it is a career for them. Like, okay, so the politicians, it's a career for them. And for those who work in the party or have jobs because of the party, it's a career for them. And they're trying to stay in power, they're trying to keep their jobs. So, unfortunately, sadly, um, if they make any decisions or policies that happen to be good for the people, and when I say good for the people, I consider things that are good that will enable people or give people the opportunity to become saints, um, and not coerce them and stuff. They, um, if they happen to pass good laws, good bylaws, if it's at a municipal level, well, that's not party politics generally, but there's influence there for sure. But at the provincial or in Canada, the provincial, or in the states, the state level, or the federal level, whatever country, the party politics, it's about them staying in power. So, so that's really what's going on. I've come to believe. It sounds cynical, but I think that really is the case. Politics is downstream from culture. Um, uh, you can get involved. Some people say get involved with if the mainstream political parties and try to change policy. I do have a friend who's recently in one of the major parties applied for a position on some sort of steering committee or something like this, and it's like great. Hopefully, that person gets this and can be a positive influence or whatever. But uh, my view of politics is developing. Um, um, I want I want I want people to run for politics that are not control freaks, who don't think that the answer to everything is to regulate to increase regulation. I don't want politicians to increase services. I want taxes to eventually be eliminated. This may seem, like pie in the sky or whatever. Well, can we move in that direction? Can we have a paradigm shift in our thinking? So, for example, just going to the basic municipal level, in my area, there's been new construction because of the scamdemic and all the lockdowns and everything like that. A lot of people bought vacant land. A lot of people are building houses. And unfortunately, many of the councillors, many of the municipal government, not all, but they see this as oh great, more money is coming in because of building permits and then increased property values, therefore increased tax revenue. But instead of saying great, we're going to reduce taxes or freeze taxes, the property taxes, instead of doing that, they say, well, let's increase services. So government has this, the people who run for government have this idea that bigger government is better, and it's not. So they're increasing. So they just, oh, we got more money, let's expand. So pretty soon the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation of Ontario is going to be sending out their new assessments for the property values, and they're just waiting for the government of Ontario to say, go ahead and release the numbers. I say, release the hounds, or whatever. But I told one of my, speaking with one of my councillors, I said, look, if MPAC, that's what the abbreviation for Municipal Property Assessment Corporation is, if MPAC comes back with, double the property values, because they're basing the assessments on the ridiculous things that were happening during the lockdowns, where someone put a property down on a Thursday on the multi-listing service, and they say we're accepting bids from until 4 o'clock on Tuesday. Then we're opening all the bids, and whoever gets the highest gets the seller will decide then. And so people were putting in bids over asking. Then a big corporation, I think BlackRock or Vanguard or whatever, they're putting in 20% above asking price and like just raising the prices like crazy. So I said to the councillor, if MPAC comes up with assessments that are double the actual value or from the present assessments, then I would expect council to have drop the tax rate by 50%. And he agreed. He said, yeah, it's not supposed to be a cash cow for the township. And recently they had a presentation where they wanted to add a tourist tax for anyone who has short-term rentals, a motel or a bed and breakfast, or someone who has a cottage and rents it out during certain times of the year. And they want to do a tourist tax on it, because the provincial government has written legislation that municipalities can do that, and many have, like most cities have. Like City of Ottawa is a 5%. I think Toronto might be 6% or something like that. So if you go to a hotel there, you have your GST and PST, goods and services tax, plus provincial sales tax, which they blended together, called it HST, harmonized sales tax, and that's goods and services, 13% right off the bat. In addition to that, they're going to add 5 or 6% onto your bill. And the way it goes is that 50% goes to the municipality, and 50% goes to some tourism entity that promotes tourism for your area. So after the meeting, I said to my counselors, I said, "What a great opportunity to not participate." I first started saying, regarding the presentation, what a great opportunity to not participate. Because if everyone else around the area and everyone across the province introduces this tourism tax and we don't, that will be an incentive for investors to come. So if it's really about tourism and tourism dollars increases the standard of living of all the residents, then you wouldn't be concerned about getting that 2.5% tax, because taxes stifle creativity, stifle investment. It's an administrative headache, and investors will be like, oh, that one area they don't. And they could even advertise that we don't have that tax. And as far as tourism things, I like any organization that gets big, or government organization, it's wasteful. The fact of the matter is, if someone has a hotel or or cottages to rent or something like that, they will do their own advertising to get customers. You don't have to spend extra money to attract people. Everyone knows my area is all about camping and fishing and cottaging and nature. That's what it's about. And there's lots of places in Ontario for that. So let's stand out and have less taxes. And I told them, like some places in the United States, some states, they advertise, we don't have any income tax, or our property taxes are very low. So, or we have no sales tax. And that's an incentive for people to go and invest there. So, long answer, Patrick, but I do tend to be more, I want to put a label on myself, but I do tend to be more libertarian and the definition of terms, like people are not going to understand it, but like at that same council meeting, there was a nonprofit or a charitable organization, I guess we might say, or a service organization who was having a fundraising dinner or something like that, and they want to do door prizes. And so one of the councillors said, has a letter asking for some sort of donation that they could offer as a door prize. So it was a very, very small thing, but again, it was all taxpayer bought, right? Paid by our tax money. So the township had recently gotten some what they call swag, so I guess they're coffee mugs and baseball hats or something like this. And so the suggestion was from this councillor to donate some of the swag, put together a swag package, and plus $25. So it was a very modest thing. But remember, all those t-shirts, sweatshirts, and stuff like that, that was a decision that someone made to spend taxpayer money to buy that swag. Okay, fine, if you're selling it for profit or something. I don't know. Maybe it's justified, but it better be a money making thing or a break even, and not just costing the taxpayers. Not just buying sweatshirts and golf shirts for the staff. It better, you know what I mean? Because you're voting, and stealing is wrong. It is stealing. It is deciding by vote to increase taxes or take the tax money from people, and that's not right. It's not ethical. Thou shalt not steal. It wasn't like unless it's voted for. No, like sorry, it doesn't work that way. There's no taxes in heaven in the kingdom of God. That's what I want to say, and. So those lefties who are always talking about building the kingdom of God on earth, well, if you're actually building the kingdom of God on earth, then they tend to be the ones who are asking for more regulations and higher taxes. And it's like, stop that, because that's going in the opposite direction of the kingdom of God. Kingdom of God, there's everyone has all the virtues. There's generosity. There's no one in need because of generosity and voluntary giving. So that's the direction to go to. But I told the councillors, look, I don't care. I object to you. They gave last year or something. Or within last year, they gave $2,000 to the food bank. I said, please don't do that. That's unethical. Oh, who can we object? I don't object to. I don't object to the food bank. What I object to is you playing Robin Hood and taking from all the taxpayers and giving to a cause because you think it's good. If instead of show support for the food bank by letting all your contacts know that the food bank is in need and this is how you donate to them. In Ontario, an individual who would give to the food bank would also get a charitable tax credit receipt, so that could be deducted from their income tax. Now, that's a whole other story, because I don't agree with any of that. I think it's all stealing. But if the township gives $2,000, and maybe that works out to 25 cents per household. I don't know. I'd have to do the math on it. Maybe it doesn't account for that much. Okay? Maybe it doesn't count for that much, and so you justify it. Well, no one would object, and would just take 25 cents from every taxpayer, and there's $2,000. No, they would raise a lot more than $2,000 if you just let people know how to donate to them, and if there's a need, and everyone who gave $50, $100, $200, or whatever instead of 25 cents, tax share, they would actually get a charitable tax credit for it. So it's totally unethical for any government to be giving to any charity. That's my position. And I know, like in Canada, there's this controversy right now about the government taking away charitable status, like charitable tax credit status, from religious organizations. And you know what? This is one of the problems, why we're in the problems that we are in, why the church, that is the church hierarchy, bishops and parish priests, don't speak up against the real issues, because they're afraid that they will lose their charitable tax status. There's strings attached. That's why when I set up in Viampatchis, it's a non-profit, but it's not. That is, it's not for profit, but it's not. I mean, I'm a priest. I don't get nearly enough donations to have the same salary, anywhere near the same salary as a parish priest. Okay, it's all about this. Naked we come into the earth, naked we leave it. Hopefully, I'll leave this, to somebody, or to some group or something that will do good with it. But the thing is, I consider if I applied and received charitable tax status, so I could issue tax receipts, then the logic is, well, you can just someone gives $100, you can say, well, if you give 150, you'll get 50 back. So why don't you give 150? So I would get more money. That's or in Viampatchis, right, which is the name of the hermitage, I'm going to call it nowadays, instead of a retreat center. That would get more money, right? We get more money, get 150 instead of 100. And I'm like, well, look, if you're going to give 150 because you're going to get 50 back, just skip out the middle bit and just give 100. Like, who cares? Who cares? Because there's strings attached, and I don't want my speech or my actions being restricted by the government's rules about losing charitable status. And plus, I consider it stealing because tax credits, I mean, it's just numbers being moved around, okay? A tax credit, their budgets, the government's budget is still so much, and the credits are factored into that. It's supposed to be an incentive for people to be charitable, but their only real incentive should be to grow in personal virtue and heaven, in heaven, okay? It's not about, it shouldn't be about tax, leave the government out of it because it's stealing, because it's the same reason why I don't want to take a salary from my diocese, because, here's something else that I consider immoral. Here's something controversial. Like I think in most dioceses in North America, certainly it works in my home diocese, is that, if you give, like in my home diocese, I think I have the numbers correct. If you give $100 to your parish, $13 of that goes to the diocese. And that, I understand the diocese, there's offices, there's accountants, there's staff. They deserve to be fed. They deserve to feed their families. They deserve to be paid. Not every parish priest is doing parish ministry. They're doing, office work or something like that. They still will do, fill-in parish ministry, but they don't have a salary. So it's like, okay, like I have no problem with that, but it's dictated that every parish pays 13% of the general collection, and I'm like, no, it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. It should be understood that every parish wants to contribute to the support staff at the diocesan level, and it is asked, or has maybe monthly forms to send in or whatever of how much you're going to give. It's like tithing, the 10% rule, and the Catholic Church doesn't mandate tithing. Some of my Protestant pastors and stuff, they say, I remember one told me, he says, it's really easy for tithing, because we look at some of these Pentecostal communities or whatever, and they're building these churches. They don't have as many people going to their Sunday services. We have people going to Sunday Mass. How can they afford it? We're always scrambling and stuff. We're always, hard to pay the bills. And well, it's because they tithe, and when they sign up to be that church member, they agree to give 10% of their gross income or whatever. So that's why they can count on it and budget and all that other stuff. And so this one Protestant pastor says it's really easy to preach about tithing. It's 10% goes to God, you get to keep 90%. Well, that's not the Christian way. It's not. That's Old Testament stuff. No, look, 100% of what we have belongs to God. That's surrender. That's the third step prayer. That's a consecration to Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Everything we have belongs to you. For some people, for some individuals, 10% is too much. And for others, 10% is not enough. So if a parish is doing very, very well, they should be out of love, out of genuine charity, saying, no, we need to give more than 13%. We have excess money. We've got 5,000 people coming to our masses on weekends. We have way more than we need. Let's give it to the diocese. And the diocese would be there for us if we're in need. And let's help out the other poor parishes. No. Why do we have priests looking after 2, 3, 4 parishes? Why? I'm going to tell you the reason why. It's not because there's shortage of priests, okay? Proportionally speaking, for the number of people that go to Mass and the number of priests, we probably have too many priests. I'm not saying, look, if you're a young man, if you're a single man, and you don't have any impediments, and consider that the Lord might be calling you to be a priest, and answer that call. It's a wonderful call. It's the highest calling, absolutely. But here's the reality. Why are 2, 3, 4 parishes assigned to one priest? Because there's not enough people giving to be able to pay for the priest's salary and the upkeep of the building. And that's the reason why. That's the reason why. Bottom line. But it should be one of generosity. And it not one of... See, if I took a salary from my diocese, that means that that my salary would come from that 13% tax, and tax is theft one way or another in that another time. But, you know, extortion. Should you pay the extortionist? Well, yes, yes, you should, but it's not a moral imperative. It's what Immanuel Kant would call a hypothetical imperative. You know, if you want to keep living in the house that you're living in, you should, you definitely should pay the property taxes. Not because it's the moral thing to do, but because if you don't, you're going to lose the property because they're gonna put a lien on your house and they're going to steal your property from you. They're going to take it from you. So, and the same thing with any other tax or whatever. So, I think the church's involvement with charitable tax status is immoral, and we become dependent on it, and we let it go. Fine, let it go. Let it go. We need to rely on God's providence, which will be another topic for another video, as I, at some point, appeal to you and your generosity to be able to support me, because I'm hitting my my debt ceiling, and I'm going to need some help if I'm going to continue on this. But I want to present to you the vision for the place and all this type of thing. And there you go. Okay, 2 hours 15 minutes. That's got to be some sort of a record. Let me just check the live chat, and we're gonna call it a day. Do 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 do. Thank you, Patrick, for your no, Iwona Joe. Or is it? I must be pronouncing that wrong. Thank you for your affirmation. Yahweh is saying they're calling it TOT in California, Sonoma Valley. Price the 11% to Sonic. Oh, that would be the tourist tax, I guess they call it. Okay. Yeah, I did want to talk about at some point. Okay, I'm going to make this one more government political thing. I got a spam caller, suspected spam caller calling me right now. Obviously, they're not watching the live stream. What is going on here? So I want to say this one more thing about government and government expansion and why it's a bad thing. In my rural township, there's no garbage pickup, at the end of your driveway, okay? But one counselor, who's a good counselor, but no one's perfect, ran on one of the things on her platform for running for re-election, as a matter of fact, was to get or look into getting garbage pickup, weekly or every other week or something like that. Garbage and recycling like cities have and stuff like that. And she did the costing out of it. It would cost $150 per resident. And you divide that up into the year, and that's very reasonable. However, I'm against it, and I'm against it for a couple of different reasons. And thankfully, she hasn't brought it up. If she did bring it up, I would do everything I can to discourage it and have the councillors vote against it. First of all, we are in the rural area, and I don't want the raccoons and the other wildlife to get used to human food. They are doing quite fine in their natural habitat and finding food in the forest. They don't need to get used to, I don't need raccoons getting used to human food. Also, I don't want, on our rural roads, and my road is very, very curvy, and hilly and everything like that. I don't want, especially I can imagine in the winter time, high winds and snow and slush and everything like that, some garbage coming around a corner and there's an empty garbage can that's rolled onto the middle of the road. I also don't want it because I don't want my dog barking every time the garbage truck comes down the road, because he would definitely be barking like crazy. But the principal, one of the principal reasons, besides the wildlife thing, is that um, the way it is right now, we have I think 4 depots, 4 garbage depots, where we can bring our garbage. One is two are like dump sites, like landfill, and 2 of them are depots, and the one closest to me is a depot. And what happens is you bring your garbage there for a modest fee of $2 a bag. Um, I don't even know if that's really the best idea, but whatever, that's the way they do it, and I don't find it. Actually, I get the bigger bags, which I think are $2.50 a bag, but whatever, doesn't matter. Um, so that goes into a compactor, and then you recycle your other things. You bring your containers or your cardboard, and glass and stuff like that, and that gets into the recycled system. And and there's a municipal staff there manning that and whatever, keeping everything orderly and clean and stuff like that. That's fine. Um, but and they have certain hours, right? So but but you can go if my closest one is closed, another one is open. I just have to drive a little bit further. Now, some might say, well, what if you don't have a car or a truck and you can't bring your garbage and things like this? And okay, well, the fact of the matter is, I asked the attendant at my depot, how many people come here that are bringing other people's garbage, and he said there's 3. There's 3 men who they have. It's a business for them. It's either their full-time or part-time business, extra money, and what they do is they charge Mrs. Jones $10 or whatever to go get her garbage, and then they may and then they maybe collect that or whatever, keep it until they have a pickup truck load, and they bring it to the depot and they look after that. Well, Mrs. Jones can call Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith's garbage pickup. She can call him anytime, any day of the week, and say, "Come and get my garbage," and you'll get your $10 or whatever the fee is that Mr. Smith charges. And so that's very convenient for her. And if you go to in a driveway pickup, Mrs. Jones is going to have to keep that garbage for 2 weeks at a time or whatever, because guess what? Mr. Smith is out of a job. So when government takes on some of their job, even if it's a subcontractor, a private company, they're taking away jobs from other people, and they're actually making things worse. They're not making things better. So I hope that makes sense, and there you go. So you can see why I'm becoming more and more libertarian, because I believe in the goodness of people, and I believe that we ought to be given opportunities to practice the virtues and not have neighbor against neighbor, which is basically bylaws and other laws. Just call the authorities and they'll look after it, instead of dealing with your neighbors in a neighborly way. And if there's some particular real problem, not apparent problem, a real problem, then you deal with that individual. You don't make regulations that restrict the freedoms. And when I mean freedoms, I mean true freedoms. That is, ability to love, ability to practice the virtues. Don't take that away from people, and don't make it easy for people to just become snitches on one another, because you'll never get to heaven like that. Never get to heaven like that. And that's one of the topics I want to do. I've done one video say you'll never get to heaven like that, but I want to do some sort of videos like something along the lines of, do you want to go to heaven? Do you want to go to heaven? Because a lot of things that people are doing, they're not going to get to heaven. And that's not good. Okay. All right. Vicar must be wondering where I am, and I'm looking forward to this beautiful ride home and taking another look and breathing in the fresh air and looking at that huge lake, that perfectly straight line across the horizon, that perfectly straight line. There are many things that I used to be sure of that I am not so sure of anymore. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go in peace, live in truth, live free.